The reason I asked that is we had another hearing in this committee, a subcommittee hearing, that we had the lady from the EPA here that has been at the EPA for 29 years. She's been in charge of this department for 14 years. It deals with biofuels and feedstock and so forth and so on. The reason I asked that, I'd asked her in her 29 years with the EPA because we had farmers and forestry people testify that these rules and regs that they were coming up with was killing them, and the biofuel people. And I asked her how many farms she had visited in 29 years to see some of these problems they had discussed, and she mentioned none. So I didn't know if any of these people writing the rules and regs have visited dairy farms or if they just think milk comes from the grocery store. Let me go, Mr. Schellenberg, it was mentioned about shovel-ready projects. I know that when the stimulus package came out, my commissioner, the Department of Transportation, and a group of other, I think, in fact, all the DOT commissioners may have gotten together and sent a letter to the EPA because a lot of these projects were shovel-ready except of the permit, the environmental study, maybe that came. And so they asked the EPA if they would expedite the environmental studies or applications so these shovel-ready projects could get on board. As far as the underground utility contractors, have you experienced any of that in any work that y'all may see in the backlog or in the background that's ready to come forward?
I haven't seen that in coming from Oregon. I haven't seen any expedited permits that I'm aware of.
No, there's no. Trust me, there hadn't been any. But I'm saying, had there been, would there not been some more shovel-ready projects
certainly
that would have been ready to go?
There's a lot of projects that were ready. I discussed, had a meeting a week ago with the Public Works Director of Salem, and we discussed this very issue that they had projects. If they could have had the permits in hand, they could have done other projects, but this is hampering them getting these projects out.
Mr. Schellenberg, I know that, and I'm very familiar with underground utility contracting work coming from a building background. I know that on occasion that when you're doing tunneling and other things, if you are in the midst of doing it and a rainstorm comes up or whatever, some of these ditches fill up with water. And whether you're doing highway construction or boring under a road or just putting in water line, sewer, or whatever, that these ditches fill up with water, an incredible amount of water at some points in time, just depending on elevation. If navigable was taken out of the Clean Water Act, would you feel, or do you think any of your members would feel it necessary to get a permit to do something with the water that was retained in these ditches, ponds, work areas before you could do anything to get rid of it?
If navigable is removed, I think we're going to be told by the EPA and the Corps that we're going to need to get permits before we can proceed with this type of work. I fully expect that to happen.
And Mr. Pedley, let me ask you that same question coming from Association of General Contractors, large commercial jobs where you do large excavation such as digging down 3 and 4 stories to put in footings or foundation for some of these large structures. Would you think the same thing, that if you were in one of those situations, large rainfall, snow melt, or whatever, that you would be put into a situation of dealing with that water, because it's going to affect something if you're in a city, of having to get a 404 permit?
Yes, I think if the word navigable is taken out and replaced with all, yes, sir. I think it's pretty clear, all waters, and whether it's rainfall or ground, or that's now in a hole, so it's part of groundwater, or if it seeps in while you're doing your work, yes, sir. I think you would have to get a 404, and then you're opening up to a whole host of problems, because now you have an open hole that is an attractive nuisance. And if a child falls in that hole because you can't fill it up because there's water in it, and you're waiting on your 404 permit, then you're open to a lawsuit from a third party because you have an attractive nuisance and a child fell in the hole, even if you've, completely fenced it off. So it's a very tenuous, slippery slope, has been discussed earlier, and I don't see any upside to it, sir.
Well, then you would be able to deal with OSHA for protecting the hole.
Yes, sir.
One final question, Madam Chair, if I could.
Time is expired, and I have given you enough time out of my time and Mr. Graves.
Okay. Well,
And
you've
the
been mighty nice, Madam
understanding
Chair.
that the ranking member and I have is
Understand.
in consultation to provide 5 minutes. And I have been quite...
Well, this is something that we'll discuss at a later time. I'll yield to your authority on that, and then we'll take it up with the
Thank you.
Speaker's office or whoever. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.